it's like trying to get a cyclist to lift weights. It's like, that sucked. That sucked. I'm not going to do it. I'm not doing it anymore. Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Coaches on Couches.
Bing! Slouches!
Today on the couch, a return coucher.
Yeah.
We got Tim Linn from Family First Try, also a very experienced swim coach, triathlete. He's going to help us out, try to help you guys out how to open water swim a little bit more proficiently. Add some confidence, and hopefully get over the anxiety of open water swimming altogether.
Yeah.
It is the biggest barrier of entry, in my opinion, for people getting into the sport. So we're going to try to offer up some tips and things you can do to reduce anxiety, and then also things you can do at home or in the pool that are going to help open water. So first, I'm Coach Dale Sanford.
I am Coach Bryant Funston, and we are the co-founders of BPC Performance Coaching, where we specialize in helping time-crunched athletes optimize their busy schedules so they can maximize their athletic performance. Every BPC coach is trained in our 5 pillars coaching system that has been developed over the last 12 years through our work with athletes of all ages and ability levels, from fresh off the couch to world championship competitors. You can find out more about BPC by going to buildpeakcompete.com, checking Facebook and YouTube at Build Peak Compete, or all on at Instagram at BPC Performance.
Tweet. All right, so we're going to just kind of jump right into it. So we actually recently started, 10 years later, started an open water swimming program, or helped our local park, Shelby Farms, start an open water swimming program. So this topic is extremely timely. There are a ton of people jumping into triathlon right now.
Say diving today?
Diving into triathlon right now, because we got the half Ironman in Memphis that's coming in October. On top of that, I think, people are just wanting to race again. Everybody wants to get out there. This event that we have this weekend has like double the people that it normally has.
Yeah.
So
I think so many people got into, cycling, endurance sports, running, triathlon through this pandemic. There was a lot more people out and being active. So,
and swimming was the hardest one because pools were mainly closed. And up until about a few weeks ago, we had no options for open water swimming in our area ever. So it's really awesome program. You can, if you're local, you can check our website, come out and swim. Right now it's on Sundays at 6 and 7 a.m. And we have a little short course you can swim and work on all these kind of skills and tips and stuff that we're talking about today.
Yeah, I went on Sunday. It was awesome.
Yeah, it's
my second time swimming in that lake.
Yeah.
Actually, the first time was when it was Patriot Lake.
Yep. A lot smaller.
Cross country, dive in, middle of practice, come back, act like we're sweaty. Run away from the park rangers.
Yeah. Well, I had approached them years and years ago about doing this similar program, and they just flat out told me no for a long time, because it what used to be a working farm, and their whole thing was, we don't really know what's in the bottom of that lake. So there could be like farm equipment and barbed wire and all this stuff in the lake. And so after they expanded the lake and everything was cleared out and the lake was brand new, but just 3 times the size, I asked again, and they were like, no. So it took a couple more years, and it took us getting the half Ironman to really show them the interest behind it. But it's an awesome program. So let's start by the question that I get all the time is, why the heck am I so much slower in open water than I am in a pool? Or why do I struggle so much, even just comfort-wise, in the open water when I can swim straight as long as I want in a pool? Drop some knowledge, because this is I've tried to explain it a million times, and I still get it. I still get asked, especially by new people.
Well, swimming is not your natural environment. You are not made to survive in the water for a long period of time. We're vertical. We walk. It's just everything that you're doing when you're in the water, you're actually going against natural instincts.
Yeah. It's not air.
Very tough to breathe.
Yeah.
And so you can train yourself to do something in a nice controlled setting of a swimming pool. You can train yourself to have decent technique and things like that. But then as soon as you add in the variable of not being able to see and not having a wall within reach really close to you, that kind of thing, those natural instincts to get back vertical, to get your head up, all of those little things, even if you think you're trying to stay horizontal, there's still these natural instincts that take over that just make open water swimming, you have to train it more than you think in an open water environment in order to detrain all of those instincts, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, and like I try to explain to people all the time, like there are some athletes who their pool times are similar to open water paces, and then there's the majority who it's not even close. And people want, nowadays everybody wants to be told what to do, what pace to hold and what power to hold and all that stuff. But I have to explain all the time that I don't really know what you can swim in the open water based on your pool times, because the water's going to change. Like, it's not even, it's one thing getting even in a different pool. You can go swim jump from a 25-yard pool to a 25-meter pool, and your overall time may be faster or slower.
Yeah.
Or your pace may be faster or slower. So now put yourself in open water with long stretches without turns, without breaks, with chop, with maybe possibly current, with wind that could be pushing you offline, all these things. And those things can affect, and in turns are like the biggest time suck in a swim. So I don't know, unless you swim open water a lot, I have no idea. And
how do you measure your improvement in open water? Because doing it off of GPS data is not going to. So a lot of people think they're swimming slower in open water than compared to the pool just because of bad GPS data.
Yeah.
So they think they're not improving, but in reality, if you actually marked it out,
Well, that and even just setting the course is hard enough. For the race directors, they put out a course based on perfect signal on a GPS, and sometimes they get measured, really actually measured. But if it's a windy day, that buoy can float, can be pulled another
blown in, not blown out.
So even year to year, the same swim course can change.
Yeah.
And so it's really just hard to compare times year to year. So, but I think to the point of you're learning a skill, right? You learn a skill in a specific environment, and even going and trying to do something that you're very good at with your eyes closed is just a whole nother way of having to learn it.
Yeah. And so even with teaching small children, there's this, you have to have your most primal needs, your most basic needs met before you can start to move on to more advanced coordinated skills of learning. And in the pool, a lot of times adults feel their primal needs, whether consciously or subconsciously, are met in that controlled environment. As soon as you get into an open water setting, those primal needs aren't met and you feel uncomfortable. And now even learning a new skill in that environment, you're not going to absorb that new skill. So you have to get to a point to where you're just comfortable in that environment first. And there's a lot of things that you can do to kind of build up your comfort. One of the things is just learning how to breathe with water running on your face is a skill in and of itself, and it's one that I'll tell parents to practice with their children.
So you're telling parents to waterboard their kids?
Yes, pretty much. When you, the worst thing you can do for your kid, if you want them to be a good swimmer, the worst thing you can do for your kid is at bath time, avoid getting water on their face.
Yeah.
Like at the earliest age, water should be flowing over their face and you should react like, yay, wasn't that awesome? Like that, they should develop a positive relationship with water running over their face.
That makes perfect sense. Huh. When my twins were babies, I used to take the biggest bucket I could find and just I yell out water park and dump it on their head.
Yeah. It was also during the ice bath challenge.
Icy cold water.
Even adults, you'll get like as an adult, can you take a shower and have water running over your face and still breathe in and out with water running over your face? Because it's against your instinct, when water touches your face, you actually close up. Mm. It gets very difficult to exhale and inhale with water running over your face. Yeah. So just doing some deep breathing technique practice in the shower can actually help you. If you're a very anxious swimmer, can help you with open water. Swimming with your eyes closed in the pool, I do that all the time. That helps you with just getting used to the rhythm of not being able to see anything and then seeing something, not being able to see, that rhythm. So whenever your head's down, close your eyes. And the only time you open your eyes is when you turn to breathe.
Yeah. And that helps with swimming straight too. You
exactly.
Find out if you're really
all
swimming
of a sudden
straight.
You run into the lane rope. We have an alignment issue here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's always I've used that definitely with folks just to get a little bit of that comfort, but then also like, hey, like you think you're swimming in a zigzag pattern. Well, let's find out. Let's swim with our eyes closed and see if we're bumping into the wall. Yeah, so that's a good one. Like, for folks that get severe anxiety or won't even get in the open water because of the anxiety of open water, we've always recommended those personal flotation buoys. They're pretty cheap. You strap it around your waist. Yeah. It floats behind you. It's not really actually offering you flotation. No, but if you panic or you need a rest or something, you can turn around and grab it and it will float.
I'd recommend that even for good swimmers, accomplished swimmers. You never know when something's going to happen.
Yeah.
So
it also shows boats and whatnot if you're in a lake that you're there and whatnot. So those are great. I mean, they're like $30-$40 if that. And they offer a good bit of flotation. And if you do a long swim, the one I have actually is like a dry bag, so you can store like your phone or something in it while you're going. And then if you happen to end up 1,000-2,000 yards down the lake and you give up, you can make a phone call.
It's like getting a flat tire.
I need you to drive all the way around the lake because I ended up on the far side.
It helps with intervals too. So if you're doing open water swimming, you don't have to.
Wait a minute, what? You do open water workouts?
Yeah.
Not just swim straight and
it's not just see how far you can go.
Yeah.
Just like with cycling and running, you got to change the pace, do some overspeed and some easy speed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Any other major tips for? I mean, the one like I've had people, in our sessions, we have 2-3 lifeguards plus some volunteers out there in boats. So there's kind of always somebody. It's more simulating a race environment, anyways. So if you need help, you can grab onto a boat. At
a certain point, it does become kind of mind over matter. Like you can only train the skills so much, and at a certain point, you do have to. Once you've demonstrated that you're a good enough swimmer in the pool, you do have to take that step to get in the open water. But I think every triathlete that I've talked to, and I've talked to a lot of professional triathletes too, they all have irrational fears of things in the water. I remember growing up, even in the pool doing swim practices, and there's a certain lane in the middle of the pool that at a young age, 8, 9, 10 years old, I wouldn't swim in that lane because it had the drain. I had to swim in a different lane.
I was totally afraid of the drain
Right?
as a little kid.
You have no idea what's going to swim up that.
Yeah, or get sucked down to it.
Obviously, completely irrational,
Yeah.
and you, at a certain point, kind of have to have mind over matter and just make
Don't fear the
yourself
drain.
do it. Yep.
T-shirt.
All right, let's jump into some of the we'll go into some technique things that are inherently different than open water, and then we'll kind of jump into some of the open water specific skills that we have to work on a little bit. So obviously you're talking about primal needs of people that have to be met before they feel comfortable in a new environment, and one of those is getting oxygen.
Yes.
Big one.
Yeah. So talk a little bit about how you would explain the differences in breathing rate, how often you breathe, how you're going to hold your mouth, or
because I mean breathing is the that's such a key factor because it involves at some point your head has to clear the water in order to get oxygen. Mm-hmm. So swimming is an underwater activity, which again goes against our instincts. Swimming is an underwater activity with body parts occasionally clearing the surface of the water. When you're swimming, you shouldn't be trying to swim above the water line. You're swimming underwater and occasionally rolling and clearing, whether it's an arm coming out or your mouth and nose coming out to breathe. So kind of having a fundamental switch in philosophy of where your body orients in the water can be helpful. That total immersion was a big deal, and he was definitely on to that.
Because there are some folks out there in the triathlon world right now, in trying to do better with in translating open water swimming. They continue to teach trying to keep your heels, your butt, and the back of your head at the surface.
Touch points, yeah.
Yeah, but that doesn't. But I think people misunderstand that, and they're like, "Oh, my feet need to be out of the water, my butt needs to be out of the water, and my head needs to be high in the water."
No, that means that the back of your head is touching the surface. Right. Your butt is touching the surface of the water, and your heels are kissing the surface of the water. Yep. Not your whole foot and leg coming out of the water and
splashing. Drowning out there.
Which means 90 or more % of your body's underwater the whole time. And then with breathing, one of the keys to breathing on your side, and we're not talking about siding, we're just talking about getting a regular breath to your side, is the fact that your mouth is on the bottom part of your head. And so when you turn to breathe, and this is...
you won't get this on the podcast.
Yes, you won't get this on the audio-only version. But when you turn to breathe, lifting your hair or your brain up actually can push your mouth down closer to the water. But it's instinctual when you want to lift to breathe, to lift your head, the top of your head up, but that rotation actually pushes your mouth closer to the water. Yeah. So like when I talk to younger children, I tell them the top of their head, where their hair is or their swim cap, that's like your shield. Like the Roman soldier is the shield. You want to keep that pointed in the direction at all times. And with that shield, you break the water, you create the bow wave, and your mouth actually gets a breath that's technically below the water line by doing that. If you lift the top of your head up, it's like lifting your shield up over your head and you're exposing your mouth, and you let that water run straight in to your mouth.
Get hit with the sword.
Get hit with the sword.
You don't want to get hit with
300.
That's a good analogy. I mean, I think in general, obviously with breathing, somewhere along the lines historically, there was so much information out there on swimming and breathing every 3 and breathing bilaterally and all this stuff, that people took that to heart, which is pretty common with triathletes. But everyone's trying to breathe like every 3rd, or like, something like you have to keep your breathing rate as close to the way you breathe when you ride and when you run and stuff like that. So it comes down, most of the time, it comes down to breathing every other stroke.
Yes.
And, aside from the head turning, are there any other keys to making sure that you can get like a full breath?
Yeah, you have to have a full exhale. Like your lungs you have to fully exhale underwater. And that's key. Exhaling underwater on the stroke before you breathe. So while you're pulling, exhale underwater, so that when you turn to breathe, all you have to do is inhale. What a lot of people do is they hold on to their breath and they wait to exhale when their mouth clears the water. And then that takes twice as long to exhale and then inhale.
Yep.
So exhaling underwater on that on the pulling arm right before you roll to breathe, exhale out your air as forcefully, exhale it out so that you can get a full inhale, and it's quicker. So then, then you don't develop a hitch in your stroke where you have a normal stroke pattern or normal stroke rate, and then when you turn to breathe, you have to pause for an extra, and you lose momentum and everything like that.
That was the biggest problem I had. Because
you're still there?
Yeah, I'm still here, guys.
Okay.
I'm gonna get my 1 point in here, and then I'll go back to silence.
Okay, cycling coach.
But I'm used to a longer inhale. So when I transitioned over to doing some swimming for the triathlon I was doing, that was like the hardest thing when I got into the water. I felt like I was just so rushed having to get oxygen in versus what I was used to. That took time to get over.
Yeah.
So is there any because of the chop and because of like the more dynamic water you're in, are there any like adjustments to like your catch or something that will help you get more like a better breath? I mean, sometimes like I've seen like people will just like reach deeper so that kind of it rolls their shoulders a little bit more than normal. I don't know if that's something that you...
Yeah, so the front end of your stroke can provide a lift if needed. So if the water is really choppy, you're not going to be able to have a super smooth stroke going through. And so this is where a competitive swimming coach would look at that and say, well, at the very front of your stroke, you don't want to press down at all because that provides an upward lift that's wasted energy. But depending on the conditions, instead of going straight into the catch and getting positive force on the water right away, if it's really choppy, having a little scull or a downward press helps lift you up just a little bit. But those are things that I don't think you practice. I think those are things that you just pick up just out of doing it many times in an
putting yourself
dynamic,
in that. Yeah, I definitely, and that's, and to speak on that, like we're kind of jumping around here, but that's kind of how you sight, right? Like if you want to lift your head above the water, you have to give yourself a little bit of a lift or a platform to push off of to get your head up just a little bit higher than normal. And so when you reach and you sight at the same time, we lift the head. We basically rest on that arm for a split second and lift the head to get view of the buoy.
Yeah, and you can do the front breath sight, but a lot of times what I'll do is the alligator eyes, where I don't lift my nose or mouth out of the water when I'm sighting.
Okay.
And I'll lift my head forward and then turn to the side to breathe.
Yeah.
So I'll catch my breath actually when my head's been, after my head has rotated to the side.
Yep.
And it's a cleaner breath that way because the top of my head is blocking the water from actually going
Gotcha.
in my mouth. But that takes some timing and coordination
Absolutely.
and practice. Yeah.
That's in it, and we'll get into kind of what I would consider the progression of sighting. But when we keep, there's one trend we keep talking about is your head,
yeah.
your head position. And we had talked about this the other day. And I went and just kind of started messing around in my own pool and just trying to just playing, floating and just playing with head position about where, like you were saying, not necessarily thinking about turning, but up and down where the head should sit in order to keep the feet a little bit higher in the water.
So body balance is what we're talking about. And this is balancing your center of buoyancy and your center of gravity. The goal in swimming is to be perfectly horizontal. The head is the biggest factor in this equation. But there are a lot of other factors, like being able to press your chest down a little bit, having straight legs, arms straight out in front of you. But a good drill to practice, which is probably what you were doing, is arms just straight out in front of you, head down, and just trying to float and see if you can get your body completely horizontal without kicking.
I cannot.
Most people have sinky legs.
Yeah.
And
I do have sinking
and that's
syndrome.
normal. I can't do it either.
I tried as hard as I could,
Yeah.
and I could not.
SLS, I call it.
But practicing it allows you to get better balance.
Yeah.
But what you can probably notice is even just lifting your head a millimeter or two exponentially
Drops your feet.
takes your center of gravity and your center of buoyancy and pulls them apart. And so you start to fall. Or body balance would be akin to your percent gradient that you're cycling on, right? So if you're out of balance and then all of a sudden you're cycling up a hill, you're swimming up a hill.
Yeah, I mean,
harder.
yeah. So the other thing, that drill that you were talking about, and we're kind of jumping around here, but the thing that I found most useful out of that drill, aside from just kind of working on the right head position, was it kind of helped me figure out what is the minimal kick I can do to keep my feet high and floating, basically the bottom end. Play with the head position, and then what is the least amount of kick I can do to keep myself balanced in the water.
Yeah.
And then I kind of took that into the next set of swimming, and it seemed to help quite a bit because I've always found myself trying to do a 2-beat kick, and it was my stroke rate and the 2-beat kick just don't match, or I'm over kicking and then I'm smoked. And I'm still trying, even with a tempo trainer, I'm trying to match the two, and it was never working. But then doing that drill and then trying to integrate that kick pattern into, it was probably more like a 4-beat, putting that kick pattern into my swimming, it seemed to help quite a bit.
Yeah. So, I mean, especially with your average triathlete, kicking in order to keep your body balanced and horizontal is the goal of the legs.
Yeah.
You're not, unless you're at the elite level, you're not actually adding power to your swim stroke. You're not adding speed. The average triathlete is not, shouldn't be doing, in my opinion, a 6-beat kick. But it's interesting, even at the elite level of swimming, you'll see, so Katie Ledecky wins the 1500 meter for the U.S. Olympic trials, and they're doing the underwater shot on it, and Katie Ledecky's doing a 2-beat kick, and the girl next to her is doing a 6 or more beat kick, just motoring the legs, and they're both elite level swimmers with 2 completely different styles, and so even at the top end, the ideal kick rate is so individual.
Yeah, and I think that's that would be my kind of tip for trying to figure out your ideal kick rate is just, like I said, do the floaty face down floaty drill, work on your head position, and then figure out what is the least amount of kicking you can do to keep your feet higher in the water and stay pretty streamlined. But the same goes for, and this is even almost more important, is stroke rate. So like you're talking about like the elite levels, it is all over the map. When I watched the WTS race a few weeks ago in Leeds, and you've got Lucy Charles Barclay up front turning over 90 strokes per minute. That's an insane high stroke rate for the average person. I mean, I would say of all the people I've coached over the years, most people fall under 60 for their natural stroke rate. It increases a little bit in the open water just by nature. But I mean, personally, I don't think I ever go over about 70. 90 is like insane to me.
Yeah. I mean, stroke rate is beneficial to train, but it's very individual. Yeah. And it's individual based on your fitness level.
Yeah.
At that time, your wingspan.
I mean, I've always found that while higher stroke rate helps you kind of break through the chop a little bit and prevents a lot of deceleration that can happen when you're trying to glide through water that's coming at you, basically. But also, it helps you get more breaths more frequently. And while you don't want to like hyperventilate, I've just found that you like having a little bit higher stroke rate in the open water, get a little bit more frequent breath because it is more dynamic and you may not be getting full breaths every time if you get water over your head or something like that.
It's interesting because I struggle with a low stroke rate. And one of the reasons is, I was a pool swimmer and a sprinter, and I had a really high stroke rate for sprinting the 50, 100 freestyle. But there was so much focus on getting a perfect catch and being so efficient to where now I still have the mechanics of a good catch and a good pull, but I don't quite have the swimming specific fitness to turn over that good catch at a super high rate. Yeah. So it's kind of like, I feel more of like a track cyclist with a huge chain ring. And so I actually struggle with a slower stroke rate because I've had so much training on efficiency in my stroke, where I almost need to figure out a way, I need to figure out a way to get a smaller chain ring and turn it over, and I might be more efficient.
In terms of, putting it, putting in terms of cycling a little bit, your cadence on the bike, when we train folks on the bike, we train all different cadences. You want to be able to do all of them, and you want to be able to kind of like match your breathing rate to whatever force you can go the same pace in the pool with a really hard pull, low stroke rate as you can a lesser hard pull, less force, higher stroke rate. Same on the bike. We can produce the same power.
Yeah.
So, I think people just fall into like what feels good right now and never work on going lower or higher.
One speed swimming is not, that's going to get you really good at swimming at that one speed.
Yeah.
You should be varying your tempo, varying your speed in your swim workouts.
So what's your opinion on having like a glide on the front of your stroke in the open water?
I think it would be condition specific. So I've had nice calm waters before, and having more of a pool stroke, I thrive in that scenario.
Sure.
When the water gets a little more dynamic and I have to up my my stroke tempo, I actually struggle a little more because I'm not as good at a high turnover as others.
So do you find that when you go from like lower stroke rate to high, or change your stroke rate, do you inherently also change your kick rate? Or does it stay pretty similar? Does the kick rate stay?
It stays pretty similar.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I think that's what, like, I've just talking to athletes over the years, like, what we kind of find when you really get into it is when they're trying to swim faster and they're trying to go a higher stroke rate, they inherently want to kick way faster, and then they're just smoked. Like, their legs take all the oxygen and they're tanked.
Yeah.
You know, it's like they're like, so then it's like trying to get a cyclist to lift weights. It's like, that sucked. That sucked. I'm not going to do it. I'm not doing it anymore. So, but yeah, I mean, you kind of have to separate the bottom half and the top half a little bit. And while they work together, it's the bottom half is not necessarily matching the effort and RPMs of the top half.
Yeah, and as your body needs to work synchronously the whole time. So as your hips are rotating side to side, your feet should be rotating side to side to the same degree. And so if you have a 2-beat kick when you're going easy, you can have a 2-beat kick when you're going hard as well. It shouldn't be a 2-beat kick when you're going easy, and then when you start to go hard, all of a sudden that turns into a 6-beat kick.
Yeah,
that's where it normally you get smoked.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that is a really good point put out there, because I have done it myself in the past, and then I've seen a ton of people, like, as soon as they try to change up their tempo, their kick goes with it, and then they're just blown up. All right, so let's jump into, like, I think we put out a lot of good little things on the technical differences in technique, but let's kind of talk about just a few of the open water specific skills that really have to be worked on. Like, you can do it a little bit in the pool, but for the most part, you got to get in the open water. And big one, sighting. Like, you can, everyone knows you can swim way farther than you really need to if you don't sight well. But just kind of talk a little bit about, like, how often.
Yeah, and how often is going to be very dependent on your individual stroke. And goes back to our drill that we talked about, swimming with your eyes closed in a pool. So you can kind of gauge before you go out to the open water, can I swim straight with my eyes closed? If I'm swimming right over the black line with my eyes closed for 6 or 8 stroke cycles, and then I open my eyes, am I still on that black line, or how far off have I veered? So your own, I guess, proclivities in terms of do I tend to go left every time? Or do I tend to go right? Which would all just be imbalances in your stroke mechanics. And then in terms of how frequent, as needed, but not more than needed. Because every time you lift your head up to sight, you're getting your body out of balance, and now you're swimming uphill. So
generally having to reaccelerate
Yes.
After you get your head back in the water.
Yeah. So finding that sweet spot of staying on line and but sighting as little as possible is the most efficient. Mm-hmm. And can only be achieved through a lot of practice, learning yourself. I generally will start out the very beginning of a race, I won't sight very much at all, just to get clear water. And then it's maybe I'll start out every 3 cycles looking forward. And then if feel like I'm really on line, I'll up it even more. And there's other things that you can use, other surroundings, even on your side breath, to help you. So like if you're swimming a shoreline and you're breathing towards the shoreline, you can
gauge the distance.
You can gauge the distance and know that you're still swimming straight, and then you would have to sight even less, just by using your surroundings
So
being able to bilateral breathe is a good skill to have. It's not the be all end all, but being able to comfortably breathe towards the shoreline to help that. Also being able to breathe away from the sun or away from incoming chop. Yeah. That kind of thing will help you have to sight less.
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah. And so like, I mean, I'm usually, I usually sight 6 to 9 strokes, something like that. Usually if I try to go over about 9 or 10 strokes without sighting, I'm veering. Yeah. And I always veer in toward, if I'm going counterclockwise, I'll veer in toward the center of the course. But yeah, it's just, you got to figure that out over, some time of working either in the pool or in the open water.
Or find some good feet.
Yeah.
Find some good feet and hope to follow those.
For those of you with a foot fetish, this part's for you.
That is always, there's a lot of chance involved in finding good feet. It's probably better suited if you're in a mass start. Yeah. Like, can I see your feet? It's much easier in a mass start, but in a time trial start, you just never, you never know.
And if you know those feet. Yeah, at the higher level competition, if you know you're surrounded by good swimmers, then if you tuck in behind, they do the sighting for you at that level.
Yep. So the how-to of sighting is always kind of complicated to explain without actually showing it. So we'll do our best here. But I always tell people when they're learning to sight, if you really have almost no, like if you're very new and you have almost no comfort, then just go into a breaststroke for a couple of strokes. You're still moving forward. Yeah. You're going to get your breath, easily, and then you can go back into freestyle. Not the most efficient, but still better than swimming way off course and then realizing it, having to stop and get back on course. In secondary, like we talk about the lift, look, and breathe, which is like, you lift your head up and then you get your sight and then you exhaling on the way up and out. And then, like you said, you're inhaling as you turn your head. That's good, but it also people tend to lift their head too much and their feet drop. Mm-hmm. Still better than the breaststroke, but kind of next. And then the alligator eyes is kind of like what you're really going for, which takes a lot more coordination. And you basically get your goggles out of the water, and then you inhale as you turn to the side.
Yeah. I'd recommend practicing the progression with fins on too for beginners, because that'll help take the weight off the legs, so that you can support the breath and you can get the timing of lifting the head at the very beginning of the catch and pull. Yeah. And exhaling, looking, and then turning and breathing at the finish of the pull. You can get that timing better with fins on, because fins will also help you slow it down, but it'll also help.
My problem has always been the fact that I breathe better and have more balance turning to the right, but I have a easier time sighting when my right arm's out and I can lift from the right arm. So then I'm supposed to breathe to the left, but I'm so much worse at it. So what happens if I don't practice and work on, sighting to the right side and turning to the right side, I get this thing where I lift it up and I look, and then I don't ever really get over enough, and then I have to wait until I come back over here to inhale, and it's just a nightmare. Yeah. So it does take a decent amount of practice just to get the coordination down of that one stroke being in the middle of other strokes with just a slightly higher head position. It wouldn't seem so hard, but it is the coordination part, and you can practice it in the pool. That's the nice part, is the actual coordination can be done in a pool. Mm-hmm. But eventually, got to take it out to the open water. Yeah. What about dealing with sharks?
Well, it's
Right?
Legit question.
yeah.
It's called "Don't Swim in an Ocean." choose your races wisely.
This is probably a good time to later, after we've already put out the anxiety tips.
Yes.
Um,
There's actually a question on tips on swimming in the ocean specifically. So I'll weigh in with avoid the sharks.
yeah.
And you guys can go
Well,
into
I
more
think-
specifics on ocean swimming versus possible lake or river.
I think just knowing how to outswim a shark is important.
Yeah.
Step one.
Go for
Yeah.
the eyes. If you
Well-
can't.
It's pretty easy to outswim a shark. I just got to outswim you guys.
Yeah.
That's right. You be faster than
Just
most
be faster
people.
than the person next to you.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I've done a few ocean swim races, and you know, to some extent, you know, people get anxiety about not being able to see the bottom of like a lake or something like that. But in the ocean, you can see the bottom, and you can see
You probably don't want to see
everything
the
that's
bottom.
down there. And so while ocean life is really cool while you're snorkeling and stuff, but
Yeah.
when you're in the middle of a race and you're swimming over sea rays or jellyfish, you know, it can add a little bit of anxiety. But that's what, you know, in those cases, you just have to keep going, you know, get past it and try to keep your breathing rhythm.
Yeah.
As you know, even if your stroke falls apart a little bit, keep your breathing rhythm there. And
Don't let your mind wander. So
Yeah.
have something that, like, whether it's a technique piece that you practice in the water, something that you go back to as soon as those thoughts start to creep up in your mind, and they do in all levels, even if the greatest open water swimmers in the world will have these natural thoughts of, oh my gosh, is there a shark down there? What was that shadow? You know? But have something that you go back to that then you can refocus on, whether
Yeah.
it's breathing, whether it's your catch, whether it's your head position.
I think the nice part of you know, keep in mind that if all of the races in all of the world, there have been, I have yet to hear of a shark attack during a race or other than occasional jellyfish things.
Yeah.
Like,
Which apparently you can still win the world championships after getting
Yeah,
stung by jellyfish.
you can.
Yeah.
Yeah, didn't even have to get peed on.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, you can. I mean, you just have to, you know, have it in your head that this is not a big deal. Everyone else is here. There's a massive amount of people in the water with me.
Mm-hmm.
Sharks aren't hanging around. For
I'm
that.
not the target here.
Yeah.
So
Other tips
Other
besides sharks, shark evasion, other ocean specific.
I think, you know, one thing to note is that you're more buoyant in salt water, which does help a little bit. But the thing is, like, you'll occasionally have current. You'll have to swim against current.
Mm-hmm.
And there's really nothing to do with that besides just keep your same rhythm, and it is what it is. Like, everyone's swimming through the same water.
Yeah. If you're swimming into a current, I would definitely not advise having extra long glide.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, if you're coming into a current, that would be a time to, if anything, increase stroke rate and go directly into your catch. Don't let yourself glide because you're going to get slowed down
Yeah.
exponentially. You want to keep pressure on the hands, kind of like keeping pressure on the pedals
Yeah.
in a
It's
headwind.
like trying to coast up a hill.
Yeah.
We had to,
you got to keep pressure on the pedals.
We had a pretty bad current a few years ago at nationals in the lake, and we were swimming out, and we were just going up and over these rollers. And finally, though, you kind of got used to it, and you were like using the rollers to breathe in sight.
Yes.
So like you
That
kind of
is
felt,
important.
you could feel yourself lift up in the water, and you're like, okay, well, I'm at the top, might as well
Yeah.
like breathe and look at the same time. And then you got slammed down deeper, but you were actually at the top of that wave long enough to get a really good breath, and it wasn't really that big a deal.
Yeah, don't waste sights in the trough of a wave.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's not going to help you. So
Yeah.
always wait for that wave to come, and when you're at the crest of the wave, lots of times you don't even really have to lift your head at all.
Yeah.
You can just look forward when you're at the crest of the wave. Yeah.
I mean, there's not a whole lot of difference in the open water or in the ocean water besides dealing with some of the current and a little bit more waves and stuff. And you can, things you can learn to get out beyond the break. You can dolphin dive and stuff like that out beyond the break, get out a little bit quicker. And then obviously you can learn to body surf on the way in and catch waves on the way in, and it speeds you up a whole lot.
Yeah.
That's fun.
Should they maybe just watch a few reruns of Baywatch?
Watch some Baywatch, and then
To know how to get
Hasselhoff, he's got it down.
yeah, get your body surf on. Jumping ahead, like we already said it, but turns are like the biggest time suck in a swim. And if you wonder why your overall pace is slower, like count the turns and then add 10, 15, 20 seconds at that turn where you're really not making a whole lot of progress.
Yeah.
Depending on the severity of the turn.
And if you got a lot of people going around the buoy.
Right. I mean, it's just a cluster sometimes at the turn buoys.
Yeah.
But any tips on like just being more efficient around turn buoys?
So there's a couple different strategies. There's the roll technique that you can do, like take a
The one
if you have like a
backstroke?
90-degree turn, you do the one backstroke and do like a corkscrew style stroke. Takes some practice, but that can be pretty efficient.
Yeah.
The other one is to do kind of a single arm stroke. So if I'm turning right, I keep my left arm, so then it's like left arm only drill, but then my right arm underwater just does like a little catch and forward and helps like a rudder to take me around that turn.
Gotcha.
So if I'm going into a right hand turn, I'm going to use my right arm as a rudder and a guide, and my left arm might do an extra stroke, and that'll get me around the corner quick.
Gotcha. No, that's a good. One thing I always tell people is obviously only turn to the side of the buoy, like keep looking at the buoy, like kind of keeping it in your vision as you turn to breathe.
Yeah.
And that generally keeps you kind of moving around. But that's a good point about doing the single arm stroke. I know, like even just trying to bend around a buoy, you end up having this big arc instead of kind of making a tight turn around it, and it's a lot of time spent doing that. And then you get courses that have some of them have 4 and 5 turns.
Yeah,
that's a lot of extra time.
Yeah, know the course before you try to swim it too.
Yeah,
like know exactly how many buoys and which ones are the turning buoys, and what degree you're supposed to turn. Like, is this just a slight bend, or is this a full 90, or is it even more? I think that's really helpful, because when you get out there, you can start like, okay, I've got 8 buoys in this whole swim, and they're all right-hand turns, or the first 2 are right, then I've got a left. Like, knowing that ahead of time.
I'm not gonna lie, I'm not an ambi turner. My counterclockwise swims are so much worse, and one of it's because we rarely practice counterclockwise swimming, and again, I'm better at turning to the right to breathe. So turning up to the left to go around buoys takes me just.
We'll see if Pam can switch the Buffalo Bill this weekend for you.
No, I don't need you getting more advantage. Yeah, I mean it's just practice, and we've done it. I've done it too, where like at the lake, even if there's like a wake zone buoy, you can go out and just start cutting around it and just get good at cutting around it. I did that 2 weekends ago, or last weekend, just to try to get around those faster, because it is just such a time suck. Drafting. Yeah,
it can be a big benefit in swimming. It can be. You also, I think there's an etiquette involved with it.
What? You mean don't grab their ankles and try to take off their timing chip?
So, kind of 2 places to draft would be right on the hip, which is you might gain the most benefit from if you're the drafter, but moving together as a pair, you might not move as efficiently because you tend to impede the front swimmer more if you're on the hip.
Gotcha.
So being right on the feet without grabbing them, being right on the feet is...
So on the feet behind him or on the feet staggered, diagonal?
Well, really, what I'll try to do is I'll try to get my head as close to the feet as possible. So I'll be taking my right hand just on the right side of their foot and my left hand on the left side of their feet. And so kind of like train tracks. And I'll try to get as close to them as I can.
So if you go out to the side, we've got to get up closer to the hip.
Yeah, if you're going out to the side,
get into the wake.
Get into the wake.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So drafting, like you said, it can be very beneficial, but something again that you have to practice.
Yeah.
And you really have to find. I mean, I couldn't spit out a number yet right now, but have to find somebody that's not that much faster than you.
Yeah, which in time trial starts, I imagine, is very
difficult.
Very difficult to find, to just get lucky to have someone that is 10% better swimmer than you that you can actually hang on to.
Yeah. It's kind of been the thing, it is the trend now that it's, especially with COVID and stuff, that more and more races are going strictly to time trial starts. And so it does put you at a little bit of a disadvantage as far as if you're not the greatest swimmer and you used to count on drafting, it's a little bit of a loss.
Yeah, and if you're chasing someone's feet and you're pushing yourself into the red zone, that's going to play it's going to have a big toll on the rest of your race if you go into the red zone too long in the swim.
I've definitely tried to draft off people that I had no business drafting on and paid for it pretty hard.
That's a bad idea.
Yeah. Get out to the first turn buoy and be like, I'm done.
Yeah.
And they're gone, so I've got nothing left. But yeah, I mean, that's something you can practice. You can practice it in a pool with a buddy, and just finding that spot where you feel like you're doing the least amount of work, and they're swimming their normal pace, and then you can switch off every 50 or every length or whatever. You can just take turns drafting.
I would never go into a race counting on drafting or strategizing ahead of time. If the situation,
unless it's a professional race and people, the field, that's one thing. As an amateur,
but if someone passes you, especially pretty slowly, definitely
try to get on
those feet.
That's probably the best strategy. If they're going to have a drafting strategy, that's it. We kind of already talked about choppy water, but do you have any other means of dealing with choppy water? We talked about increasing the stroke rate a little bit.
I tend to go more to like a windmill style stroke. So a little bit straighter arm recovery coming up over the top. If you have the classic freestyle where you're doing fingertip drag or something like that, in a choppy setting, you could the recovery of your arm could get impeded by chop. But I think with open water swimming in general, just having a little bit higher arm, straighter arm recovery coming over the top and having higher turnover helps. And then the choppy water just is the reason why. I mean, the more chop you have, the more important it is to keep pressure on the water, constant pressure on the water, and have a higher turnover. Yeah,
for sure. So last, it's kind of a question we get a lot, and then we'll probably wrap it up. But if you what is your recommendation for either trying to get out in front or kind of waiting, if it is a mass start, kind of waiting for people, the first kind of wave of good swimmers to get out, and then you kind of go?
Yeah, I think that's so individual.
Yeah.
Right? It's if you're a great swimmer then of course you're going to want to get out
Sure.
in front and get clean water out in front. Like we talked about with drafting, moving as a pack in the water is always just like traffic on the road. It's always, everybody's going to move more efficiently if you're swimming at like speed with the people around you. If you're either a really slow swimmer and a bunch of fast swimmers are trying to pass you, there's going to be contact, and the slow swimmer is going to swim even slower, and it's going to slow down the fast swimmers trying to pass. It's like having a really slow car in the middle of a highway. It slows everybody down. So trying to line up with likability, and we'll get everybody through the swim faster, I think.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I always, like, it's more of like you said, it's individual. If you are newer and even anxious in the water, just let them go. Like, if it's gonna make your swim miserable, let everyone go. Like, just wait till there's clean water for you to swim on your own pace. With all the onset of like self-seeding starts and stuff like that in a lot of the Ironman races or long course in general, that's the kind of one time where I tell people, like, go early. Like, even if you're not a great swimmer, it's already like you're among faster swimmers and it's a time trial start. They're going to go and you're going to have clean water, and then people are going to be passing you, and
you have a better
you're going to
chance.
slow them down, but you're going to benefit from going out earlier than waiting and then possibly having to swim through a bunch of people because you misseeded yourself or whatever.
That's true.
The other part of it is
swimming through people
early,
is a lot slower.
Yeah. If you go early, you get out of the water earlier, and you're on the bike and on the run earlier, and you don't risk the heat and the wind and all this stuff picking up. So
good time for this question from Cullen on Instagram. How to maneuver through traffic without losing too much time or adding too much distance. Is there any tips on that?
Yeah, that's going to be very situational. So the thing that I hate are multiple lap swims because of that reason, where on the second lap, inevitably I'm catching and having to move through the first lap field or something like that. And it can be very difficult. So do you go wide and swim extra, or do you try to snake through the swim? A lot of it can also depend on how heartless are you? Because you can swim through traffic. You can swim through traffic and kind of Alistair Brownlee some people,
dunk them.
And you can get through traffic pretty quick that way.
If you ever feel a hand on your shoulder, it's not me.
Yeah. But the downside of going through traffic is you inevitably have to sight so much more. So you are going to have to increase your sighting.
Trust no one.
Yeah. And then you're going to have to pick lines earlier. Like, don't just swim up to feet and then try to swim around them. Like, don't just react when you hit the feet. You're going to have to start picking feet that are 15 meters out in front of you and kind of plan your line at that point.
Mini zigzags as opposed to...
Yes. So as opposed to running up
having
on
to
someone
stop.
and then trying to go around them.
That's the worst, is having to stop and then reaccelerate, as far as efficiency goes and how bad it feels to like have to stop. I got kicked in the face because I came up on them too fast, and then now I got to go around them and reaccelerate around them. If you sight for the person in front of you a little bit, you can just make usually slight corrections and get around them. It doesn't necessarily always mean you're going to not swim much farther, but you're not going to have to impede your stroke and your rhythm quite as much, which in my opinion is like the biggest thing. Like, if you're not a great open water swimmer, the longer you can keep that rhythm, breathing, stroke, kick, everything in sync without having to stop it, the better off you're going to be on that whole swim.
Yeah.
You're going to get out of the water feeling better. You're going to, everything. So, yeah, just sight for some people. Everyone's got brake caps on, and just kind of start moving around. If you're making ground on them, just move to the left or the right a little bit, and hopefully you're past them. Hopefully they're not going to go with you.
Yeah.
I think that pretty much covers it. There's a lot of great information. Hopefully a lot of you guys will pull some good nuggets out of there and help your open water performance. If you have any other questions, make sure you post them up on...
I got a...
we do have a question?
I got another Instagram question.
All right. I didn't know we were on Instagram today.
Oh, yeah.
Daniel, everyone. Daniel Scruggs.
Daniel's been sending me some of these responses.
Our marketing guy.
Any specific types of workouts to incorporate? And any tips on how to swim straight?
I think we kind of covered a lot of the swimming straight stuff.
Yeah.
Workouts, I'll let Tim talk more about it, but the big things that I've always incorporated with people is just varied tempos.
Yeah.
And doing like 30 strokes hard, 30 strokes easy, moderate, going out hard and settling in, those types of things. Simulating efforts you're going to have to do out in the open water no matter what. Mm-hmm. And just thinking about how those happen and then turning them into a set pretty much.
Yeah, I don't think swim training should be drastically different than the way that we train running.
Right.
So if your goal is to swim 1 minute 50-second pace for 100 meters, you shouldn't do all of your swims for 30, 40-minute swims at 2-minute pace, and that's all you do. You've got to vary it up. You got to do a lot of swimming at 140 pace.
Yeah.
Intervals. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's open water, has to be thought a little bit more. And even in the pool, like pool workouts that you're doing, think of it a little bit more. It's similarly to biking and running and how you train that way. And it makes a lot more sense when you're putting in those interval sessions and going a little bit harder here, a little bit easier here, going out hard and trying to recover in those types of efforts that you're going to inherently get in open water anyways. And
I think the neuromuscular side of sprinting is something that's missed a lot of times in swimming, because there's a lot of even technique that you can gain from doing some all-out sprints, some 25s, not exclusively. We're not like USRP, ultra short race pace training or anything like that, but having that zone 5 work, the top neuromuscular kind of sprints built into your swim training plays a lot. It gives you a lot of benefits that if you just swim slow all the time, you're not going to get that.
Yeah. Well, that's why we work in stride outs and hundreds and stuff on our run workouts, and we put in fast spins and like max cadence efforts and stuff like that on the bike, because in order for you to actually push up the ceiling of what you're able to hold as a turnover rate, whether it's cycling, running, or swimming, you have to like practice turning over your arms really fast.
Yeah.
And doing some of those sprint workouts and turnover sessions, period, are going to help you actually maintain a higher stroke rate in the water more comfortably. And if you never do it, you're never going to get good at it.
I mean, swimming's definitely more technical, and there are some smart ways to gain speed, but consistency still reigns king in terms of improvement. That's a lot of times people complain about their swim sucking, and they don't swim that much.
Yeah. Well, I ride and run 3 to 4 days a week each.
Yeah.
How much do you swim? Once or twice. I find the pool once or twice. Yeah, you definitely have to put in the time and the consistency for sure. I think that covers it.
Yes, officially covered.
We got no more questions. Perfect.
I think we're good.
Well, I appreciate everyone hanging out, listening, watching. We'll catch you guys next time. Adios.